Hello ladies and gentlemen, Teveron here, and welcome back to another episode of Friday Night Magic. This week, we are going to be playing Mono Black Eldrazi, also taking advantage of some of the new mechanics from Aether Revolt, namely, Revolt. Let's see what this deck has going on. I would classify it probably as a more mid-rangey deck, kind of trending towards controlling. We are running a pair of Walking Ballista. All-around great creature, helps us control the board, can also trigger Revolt for us in a pinch by either casting it as 0 and just letting it die, or removing all the +1/+1 counters and letting it die that way. Also running the full 3 of Fatal Push. Revolt is a mechanic that we are trying to take advantage of, as I mentioned. There are other ways to trigger it besides the Ballista in the deck. We're playing 2 Bearer of Silence, an Eldrazi that has never really seen a ton of play, but I think is pretty good. The only downside being that it can't block, but we can pay an additional 1 and a colorless. When we cast it and force an opponent to sacrifice a creature, it is also flying. A pair of Glint-Sleeve Siphoners for the menace damage dealing and also the potential card draw with the energy mechanic. Gifted Aetherborn as a 3 of. As it is a Death Touch lifelinker, it's great at keeping big ground pounders from attacking us. Also, the lifelink is not to be underestimated. 2 Scrapheap Scrounger as a recurrent threat that lets us get a little bit more staying power in the late game. A pair of Smuggler's Copter, the ubiquitous looter scooter. 3 Grasp of Darkness, very versatile removal in the early game. 2 Yahenni, Undying Partisan. This is another way that we can get Revolt. We can sacrifice another creature to her, or it, rather. The Aetherborn are genderless. And then that will trigger Revolt. Gives it indestructible till end of turn, and every time an opponent's creature dies, it gets a +1/+1 counter. Also 3 of Vengeful Rebel, another Revolt card in the deck, 3/2 on its own, and can potentially give -3/-3 to a creature an opponent controls. Also running a pair of Murder to kill those things that our Fatal Pushes and our Grasp of Darknesses just can't handle. 3 Read the Bones to restock our hand. Liliana the Last Hope as a great 3-drop Planeswalker that helps us control the board, recur our threats, and if we actually emblem her, that generally wins the game. Also running Kalitas. It is interesting to note that while Kalitas is a great control card that helps us get rid of recurrent threats on the opponent's side, it is a bit of a non-bow with Yahenni, Undying Partisan. As Yahenni says, when a creature dies, put a +1/+1 counter on it, and Kalitas replaces the dying with exiling. So that, well, I have screwed up my placement here. Did I remove Kalitas? I did. There we go. And Kalitas causes that card to exile instead of going to the graveyard. Dying is a keyword that actually means go to the graveyard from play. Then we are running 2 Thought-Knot Seer. Great 4-drop. 4/4 for 4 is excellent. However, stripping the most relevant card from our opponent's hand is the more relevant ability. Also, when it leaves the battlefield, they get to draw a card, but in practice, a random card from the deck is generally worse for them than the best card in their hand. Also, the pair of Reality Smashers. In the late game, this is a threat that is extremely hard to deal with, as when it's targeted by an opponent's spell, they have to discard a card or that spell gets countered. Also, Trample and Haste. Pretty nice. And finally, Ob Nixilis Reignited lets us draw cards, kill creatures, and an emblem that straight out kills the opponent very, very quickly. Our mana base is pretty simple. We're running 11 swamps as we are massively more into black than we are into colorless. 1 waste, 2 Westvale Abbey, 1 Geier Reach Sanitarium, 3 Aether Hub, 2 Crumbling Vestige, and 4 Evolving Wilds. That gives us a total of 13 colorless sources, which is enough to give us a colorless source by turn 3, 90% of the time. And the reason I mention turn 3 is if the colorless source is Crumbling Vestige, we need to have it come into play the turn before it can produce colorless. It can't produce colorless the turn it comes into play as it enters the battlefield tapped. But that is the deck list. Let's play some games. Okay. This is a bit of an awkward hand as we don't have a permanent black source. However, I think it's keepable since we do have 2 colorless cards. So we will keep this hand. And hopefully we will draw a swamp eventually here. Not yet. We will lead off on the Aether Hub. Then turn 2 we will Scrapheap Scrounger most likely. Alright, Expedition Envoy for the opponent. Into Evolving Wilds, so it looks like we're probably against green-white humans. And they fetch a white source there, so no third color evident at least yet. Okay, that is nice. And it kind of changes our play. Now I think we play Walking Ballista. That way we can kill something with 1 toughness and trigger Revolt for our Vengeful Rebel next turn if necessary. Alrighty. Don't think we're really in the market to try to race an aggressive humans deck yet. Alright, going to swing with that Envoy. We will not be blocking. Hopefully they don't have removal for the Walking Ballista. That would be very awkward for us, though we could still kill this Envoy. There is Thalia. That is great. So we're going to get a 2-for-1 here. Still no swamp. That comes into play tapped. And we are not getting a 2-for-1 at the moment because we do not have a untapped land. We really needed a basic to be able to do that. Unfortunate. Hopefully they don't untap and drop an Always Watching on us. We'll play our Siphoner, which will also come into play tapped. And we will pass back. And get ready to take 5 damage. No Always Watching. Fingers crossed. Well, that's almost as bad, especially if they have another human to pump it up. Right, Evolving Wilds, so we're going to be taking an actual 7 here. Oop. Yes, no? Oh, they skipped their attack phase. Never mind. Yes, we will be paying to draw. Thank you very much. And we got a swamp, which is awesome for us. Let's go ahead and see if we can pull this off. They could have a Blossoming Defense. We'll try to kill the Lieutenant, which happens. Then we will also see. It's not letting me tap differently. I want to leave an Aether Hub up, thank you very much. Add colorless. There we go, thank you. Lots of lag today, it seems. Try to kill this. And that happens, awesome. And now I think we swing for 2 to generate energy for ourselves. They can't block as this has Menace. And hopefully they don't have another Thalia, that way our stuff next turn starts to come into play untapped. Thought-Knot Seer is a very big wall. Gideon, okay. So, they choose not to attack again. We don't have the energy to draw an extra card this turn. Evolving Wilds, though, is very nice, as that will again let us trigger Revolt, so we will do just that. And we could also drop the Thought-Knot Seer this turn instead, but I think pressuring Gideon is the more important thing, especially stopping him from embleming. And I guess the reason it didn't want to let me tap the Sanitarium last turn is because I didn't have any energy to make colored mana with the Aether Hub. Do I want to offer the Vengeful Rebel in trade for that Knight ally? I think I do. They can't block the Siphoner, so we'll be getting through for 2 damage here. And they will be blocking, or they would lose their Gideon. Alrighty. Next turn may be a Thought-Knot Seer turn. They are up to 5 mana. I would love to wrench a Johnny out of their hand if they have that card in there. So they're going to attack with Gideon. Okay, we will not be blocking. We could be getting planar outbursted here. I will take that risk. Nope, a Bygone Bishop. And that is it. Alright, we will draw. Down to 11. Murder was excellent, though, especially if it resolves. We will try to make that happen. And it looks like it is. Hopefully they're not running fogs. They could have Blessed Alliance also, so we will attack with both here. Confirm. Generate an energy there. Looks like Gideon is going down and we're not losing anything. And hopefully they don't have land into a Johnny. That would be awful for us here. Though otherwise, we're in a decent position. Go ahead and deploy our Scrapheap Scrounger and pass back. And they have left the game. We're going to continue. Alright. No a Johnny, please. Alright, always watching. There we go. Which I'm not even sure a Johnny would get them out of this, though it could potentially draw them 3 cards. Okay, well, swamp. And I want to see what that last card they've got in their hand is. Collective Effort. Great card to be taking with Thought-Knot Seer, as it actually deals with Thought-Knot Seer pretty handily. And we will crash for 8. And unless they get something incredibly good, they are dead next turn. Planar Outburst would keep them alive for a turn, as would Tragic Arrogance. Looks like that is not the case. They have Wreck Sage, which is not going to be good enough, I don't think. They can block 1, take 8. Not exactly dead, but we have a chance to draw removal. We didn't. We'll give it another go. Let's have both of us draw and discard. Alright, just another land. We'll ditch the swamp in favor of the Revolt triggering Evolving Wilds. And then we will attack. And here we go. Generate our energy. They're not completely dead here, though they do have to block. Block the thing that is not recursive. And we will also play out our Smuggler's Copter. And we're not going to recur the Scrap Heap now, as that makes it more vulnerable to sorcery speed removal. We will do that on our opponent's turn. Alright, end phase. Bring this guy back. Now, that is fine. Doesn't really matter what we remove. No other recursion in the deck besides the Scrapheap Scroungers. Unless you count Liliana, but she's a one-of, so... I'm not even going to crew here, as it doesn't really matter. And I will see you guys in the next game. Okay, I think this is a perfectly fine hand to keep. We have our colorless source, we have great creatures, and great removal. I'm quite happy with this. Depending on what our opponent does, that will let us decide if we want to play our Aetherborn or our Scrapheap Scrounger. This represents life gain and more control, and this represents more damage. Alright, Dragonskull Summit. And an Asylum Visitor, so we will be Fatal Pushing that. And then probably just deploying Scrapheap Scrounger and start beating the opponent's face in. If that is in the cards, so to speak. Haha. Puns. Alright. Hopefully they don't have too an aggressive a start. We could get vehicled to death. Oh, it looks like they're straight up vamps. Still can have vehicles in that deck. Most of them run Smuggler's Copter. Occasionally you'll see Ether Sphere Harvester, Fleetwheel Cruiser, or even Sky Sovereign. Chooses not to discard there. Not really got mana up to pay madness costs, so that is understandable. So we might want to kill this discard outlet. But first we're going to attack and see if they elect to trade both of their creatures for this one. I very much doubt they want to do that. And they do not. So again, we could play out the Aetherborn or the Scrounger. However, I think I want to use my mana efficiently and murder this. That prevents them from having a recursive madness outlet. Also gets rid of this damage source, though Aetherborn could theoretically do that, but we're going to go ahead and murder this. Then next turn we can drop both of these. Taking one here. And what else is forthcoming? Ooh, Olivia. Yup. She's a bit big. Alright, Evolving Wilds. I don't think we want to play that. We will, however, swing. Taking the opponent to 14, it appears. And we will Aether Hub. Then cast our Aetherborn. And Scrapheap Scrounger, number 2. Life gain being always nice in a race. Makes every connection of the Gifted Aetherborn with the opponent's face a 4-point life swing, as we are gaining 2 and they're taking 2. Would also very much like to not draw many more lands now, as we need some gas at this point. 2 removal spells already used. Let's see what they choose to do. Can't really block anything, as Scrounger can't block, and Gifted Aetherborn can't block this, as it has Menace. They choose to leave it back, though, so they must be planning to block. Either that or they don't realize Scrapheap Scrounger can't block itself. Nope, they're going to sacrifice it to Madness out Asylum Visitor and draw a card. Then they can discard another to put a counter on it, but choose not to do that. And Ravenous Bloodseeker, okay. Again, they can discard a card to put a counter on it and give it haste, but as it's post-combat, the haste isn't really an issue. We will be swinging with the team. Aetherborn can kill either of these, so they're going to trade their Asylum Visitor for the Gifted Aetherborn, so we'll gain 2, deal 6 to them, then we will Evolving Wilds. We're going to go ahead and crack it, though we might ought to have saved it for potential revolt triggers. Trying to keep from drawing too many more lands, though. And we could potentially get revolt just from attacking in and having them kill our creatures. Alright. Stromkirk Condemned can pump their team. Discard to give +1/+1 in haste. Looks like they are. Blood Mad Vampire, so they're going to Madness that, probably. Yes. And they could also give this +1/+1 in haste. Looks like they choose not to. Every time this connects with us, it gets a +1/+1 counter on it. So, do they swing with everything? We can eat this, though they could pump it with the discard. No, chooses to sit back and play defense. Interesting, and unfortunately we did draw another land. So do we offer the Gifted Aetherborn for trade? They could block both of our Scroungers and then discard this to pump their team +1/+1, which means that they would simply be losing the card in hand. We only have one creature in the graveyard, so we could only recur one of these Scrapheap Scroungers. We could also attack with all 3, letting them wipe our board and then recur both Scrapheap Scroungers while killing one of theirs with the Aetherborn. So I think it's either all or nothing. And at this point, I'm going to err on the side of all. Right, Olivia. And probably the Condemned. Nope. Trading the Blood Mad Vampire here. And this here. Okay. So are you just going to let your stuff discard to the... Yep, there we go. Discarding a land. So these will live. These will die. Then we will go ahead and play our Aether Hub, and again we're going to wait to recur until their turn to help protect from sorcery speed removal. An Eldrazi off the top would be awesome, any of them. Bearer of Silence, Thought-Knot Seer, Reality Smasher would be actually insanely good at the moment, I think. Go ahead and go to 17 here. And they have nothing, so we will again recur these guys. That's fine. Removing an Aetherborn. We'll go ahead and do this guy as well. That's fine. Remove the other Aetherborn. Hopefully draw a bit of gas instead of lands. Come on. Unfortunate. So, we could swing in again, and again they would eat our stuff. They do have a discardable thing there. So instead we're going to play our Crumbling Vestige and pass, which is hopefully going to force them to keep these guys on defense. Let's see what they choose to attack with. Nope, swinging with 2 this time. That makes me think they do have something to play post-combat. And another Ravenous Bloodseeker. So again, that is stonewalling our Scrapheap Scroungers at the moment. And if we keep just drawing lands, we're going to lose. I mean, we're already close to that anyway. So they've got 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. We are dead. If they choose to attack with everything, there's nothing we can do, as our Scroungers can't block, which is unfortunate. But you can't always have perfect draws. Sometimes you get mana screwed, sometimes you flood out. You do your best to build your deck in such a manner that that is a less likely thing to happen. Doesn't mean it's not possible. And incorrigible youths, we are very dead. Good game, opponent. Hopefully we'll have a bit more RNG in our favor in the next game. I expect everything to come at us, and it does. That's a lot of lands. We do have Murder and Bearer of Silence, though, so I'm going to go ahead and keep it, and hope it's not a horrible decision. We'll drop our Swamp. Alright. Isolated Chapel from the opponent, and a foily one at that. And we are seeing more lands, which is unfortunate. Probably should have mulliganed this hand. But a creature that's a removal and a removal were just very tempting to me. Alright, Saram. We probably want to go ahead and kill him so that they can't start drawing a ton of cards. Vengeful Rebel is very nice. Let's just keep playing our black mana for now. We're going to go ahead and murder this on sight. If they have a vehicle or an aura in their hand, then they can draw a lot of cards. Next turn, Bearer of Silence is online, so they could play something relevant, and I think Thalia is indeed relevant. Bearer of Silence will deal with her. Again, please. Oh, darn it, I forgot. It won't deal with her, as they come into play tapped. I need to remember that. Thalia makes sure non-basics come into play tapped. Still, we can make them sacrifice something next turn, hopefully. Hopefully they won't play a second creature, and it's Thalia. Still, there was really nothing we could do there. We could have played the Evolving Wilds so that we have Vengeful Rebel online. Probably was the more correct play. Ooh, looks like they are Mardu. Into Harvester. Well, that is not going to bother us. They don't have the ability to crew it. And now they do. So this is probably what Bearer of Silence is going to get sacrificed. We have a Smuggler's Copter of our own. So at this point we need to play the Evolving Wilds, but we're going to see if they want to sacrifice Thalia. I very much doubt they do. Yes, pay that. Toolcraft to the bin. Or they could crew and sacrifice the Harvester, I suppose. Toolcraft, bye-bye. Then we'll play our Evolving Wilds. And then our next turn, we should be able to deal with Thalia. She really does a good job of slowing our plans down. The only basic source of colorless mana in the deck is a Singleton Waste. Right, are you going to pay to gain some life? Looks like no. Other uses for the energy, maybe. Well, let's swing with our Bearer of Silence. As it can't block, we need to just do what it can. Then we will sacrifice this Evolving Wilds. Don't ever really need more than one source of colorless, so we'll get a Swamp. And then we will Vengeful Rebel. And -3/-3 on Thalia. Suppose they could have a built to smash or something along those lines. That will let us play our Westvale Abbey untapped and Smuggler's Copter. Shock here? Yes. Read the Bones would be an awesome draw now, as would most of our Eldrazi. Hopefully they don't have a creature. They have another Harvester, but it looks like maybe nothing to actually crew with. Nope, they have a second Thalia, which is unfortunate. So we can't afford to be attacking here. And they crewed the wrong Harvester, so we can afford to be attacking. That one is summoning sick. They could have gone ahead and crewed this one with that one and swung with it. Murder's excellent, however, I think we first want to loot and see if we have better options. Attack. Yes, please. Fatal Push is very good. So we will discard the Swamp. So the question is, do we want to murder a Harvester or Thalia? Well, if we murder Thalia and they don't draw another creature, then they just have nothing going on. So I think it is Thalia for sure. At least in this situation with them empty-handed. Okay. Potentially removal in hand, and they have been replaced by AI, so probably not removal. At this point, I am going to make a Cleric. We want to leave a source up that we don't have to spend energy to make black mana. Then we will crew the Smuggler's Copter with the Cleric and attack for 5. Yes, always loot. Reality Smasher, thank you very much. We'll discard the Swamp. And we are indeed connecting, so they are potentially dead next turn. If they play something 2 or less, we can Fatal Push it, so that they aren't able to crew on our turn to block. Aether Hub. What is that last card? Did they just hold a land last turn? Before being replaced by AI? Nope, Saram. Okay, well, Fatal Push that. Crew here so they can gain 3 life, taking them to 13. We can deal 5/10. Taking them back to 3. AI does some weird things. I don't know why it double crewed there, but, you know, whatever. There they go. So we'll trade places and life totals. And Kalitas is nice. However, Reality Smasher is more damage, a lot more quickly. So crew here. And let's put the opponent to 3. Now what would be awful for us here is if they draw Saram's Expertise. Grasp of Darkness. Yeah, I want the Grasp, as we can cast it. And then play that, they could crew both of these and swing and gain 6. However, the Grasp makes it to where they can only gain 3. Alright. Looks good for us. We are going to crew with this Cleric. Could also make another Cleric, but I want to hold the Grasp up for whatever shenanigans could be afoot. And then we will attack. Sure. Discard push. And I will see you guys in the next game. Yeah, we can't keep this. Yeah. Sure. It's not a great hand, but I mean, it's better than no lands at all. Aetherborn, sure. We'll fetch with one of these Evolving Wilds, saving the other for potential Revolt triggers. Being able to play the Aetherborn on turn 2 helps us out quite a bit. Let's go ahead and fetch here. If it will take my input. There we go. Alrighty. Okay, Yahenni helps too. That gives us a very good curve this game. Though we may want to potentially hold up Murder to deal with this Smuggler's Copter next turn. Alright, Evolving Wilds for the opponent. Are we going to see Mardu, or are we straight Boros here? Okay, Boros thus far. No fetching of a swamp there. Selfless Spirit, okay. Crew attack. Indeed. So, is it better to Yahenni or to Murder? That's the question. They could be playing a card like Built to Last, which would mean the Murder wouldn't even kill this. And we're gaining 2 while dealing 4 to them if we go the Yahenni route. So we're definitely winning that race. So maybe we Yahenni, planning to Murder on a later turn. And I think that's what we're going to do. Alrighty. Also can just sack Selfless Spirit to keep the Smuggler's Copter alive. And now that Yahenni's in play, that would actually grow Yahenni. So there's an upside there as well. Will also let us curve into Kalitas, which, as we stated in the deck tech, these two are a bit of a nombo together. I think they're still worth playing in the same deck, but... Alright, choosing not to crew and attack, which is interesting. Which means that we will be playing Kalitas pre-combat. Make red, make him think. and then attacking just with the Gifted Aetherborn, as it is Death Touch. And if something dies on their side, we will get a zombie. Alright, crewing. And blocking. So are we killing the Copter, or are we killing the Spirit? I wonder. Maybe they just wanted the loot and they have a removal spell to deal with the Aetherborn. Alright, discarding Karizev. And they are Mardu, the black there. So we get our zombie. They just let the Copter die. I'm quite happy with that. Unlicensed on Kalitas. Fatal Push on yeah, okay. Well, we'll just go ahead and sack that to Yahenni because don't really think there's a 1-white removal spell in the format. Guess the opponent couldn't decide whether they wanted to Fatal Push or to unlicense Disintegration there. The Fatal Push definitely was viable, as they had a thing leave the battlefield that turn. Alright, Thought-Knot Seer. I like that. Let's play Evolving Wilds. And then pre-combat, we'll play Thought-Knot, in case they have a Blessed Alliance or some similar thing. Okay, Archangel Avacyn. Good to know about. We'll get their Fatal Push then. There we go. And no attacks this turn. No reason to suicide our things. Going to leave this uncracked in case we need to revolt something in the future. We'll take 6. And then we will swing with Thought-Knot. If they block with Archangel and sack this, we can murder in response to the Indestructible. Play our Westvale Abbey. And attack. Alright, no blocks. And we will pass. And now we will murder Avacyn when they attack. That will cause them to sack the Selfless Spirit, which will pump up Yahenni. And then the Selfless Spirit will be off the board, so the murder can deal with Avacyn on our turn. Yep. Murder. Alright, pump here. Alright, taking 4 to 11. Alright, still not cracking this. Flip. We could have murdered that in response, however, I want her to kill this. Sack this zombie. And murder Avacyn. So that will wipe their side of the board while keeping our side of the board alive. Humping up this. And we will swing. For a lot. 9 to be exact. Alright, play a swamp and pass. Alright, continue. And this should be the game. Shenanigans notwithstanding. unlicensed on that. Sure. Don't want to let you draw a card if we can help it. And Thought-Knot is lethal. They most likely aren't playing Blessed Alliance, but if they are, then they've got us here. Yeah. We'll definitely be keeping this. We'll go Swamp. We'll go Aether Hub into Siphoner next turn. If there's something we need to kill, we may just go Swamp and Grasp. Though I don't think that there's a lot we would want to kill this early in the game. They are just evolving into Mountain, okay? So this will potentially let us draw an extra card unless the Siphoner dies with the energy from the Aether Hub here. Go ahead and play the Siphoner and cross our fingers that it lives. I would very much like to draw another card next turn. Alright. Red and blue, so this could be a Prowess deck, or it could be a Dynavolt deck, or Fevered Vision / Sphinx's Tutelage, or any amalgamation of the three. We will pay and draw. Alright. So, we have options. We can play the Evolving Wilds, we can play an untapped mana, and play Yahenni, which could die, though we could sacrifice our Siphoner to keep it alive. However, I'm of the opinion that at the moment the Siphoner's probably the more valuable creature, as it does give us card draw. Generate energy, and looks like neither are dying, so we could get Radiant Flames or Kozilek's returns next turn, in which case I would sacrifice to keep our Yahenni alive. Alright, Grixis. That adds a bit more range to their deck. Don't have the energy to draw another card this turn. Read the Bones is nice, though. Let's play our Westvale Abbey and then attack. Generate a second energy. We could get Yahenni's Expertise next turn now, which sacrificing to Yahenni will not keep it alive, as minuses get around indestructibility. What we for sure want to do, though, is try to resolve a Read the Bones. Going to get countered. Okay. Hopefully our deluge of removal is not going to go against us in this game, as these decks do tend to run very, very creature light. Looks like we are not getting swept, which is great. We're going to get to draw an extra card again. Yes. Gifted Aetherborn. That's nice. However, I don't think we want to play it into a potential board wipe. We'll attack for 4 more, taking them to 8, gaining energy. And if this represented lethal damage, I might consider playing it, but I think our best course of action at present is to just pass. We do have potential to trigger Revolt and kill a 3 or 4 drop also. They are going to Glimmer and draw some cards, get some energy, potentially looking for an answer. Hopefully they didn't find it. 5 manas for the opponent. Opponent deep in the tank for a minute. What are you targeting? This? We could sacrifice to keep it alive, which would potentially let us get around more removal. However, this is drawing us cards. And if they have a second removal, we're just losing both anyway. I'm going to try to keep it alive. I think the damage is more important at present. Hopefully they don't have a way to kill it. Leave this uncracked for potential revolt triggers. We are going to play Gifted Aetherborn pre-combat. Alrighty. And swing for 2. They have Fatal Push. On this, well, we're just going to go ahead and eat it. Just because. Taking them to 6. And pass. And we probably will crack this turn no matter what, so that we can start generating clerics. Disciple of the Ring. Okay, we are going to try to grasp that. This is going to get countered, but then we have a second grasp on our turn to kill it. Yep, activate her ability to try to make us pay 2 more. We can't. What we can do is sacrifice our Evolving Wilds, though, and we will. For a swamp, just so we don't forget. Okay, counter-spelled. That's fine, we're going to kill her anyway. Another Yahenni. They are legendary. Let's not make that mistake. We'll go ahead and grasp while they're tapped out. And Yahenni will get larger. And put them to 3. Again, we're in a situation where drawing Eldrazi's would be great, especially Thought-Knot Seer or Reality Smasher. Bearer of Silence, not quite as much, especially if they don't play something we need to kill. Ob Nixilis. That's a little unfortunate. They are going to kill the Yahenni, I imagine. And when we deploy this Yahenni in attack, we will be attacking their face. That way this turns off Ob Nixilis. They will be unable to tick it up, and they won't have enough loyalty to tick it down to kill. That is, unless they have some life gain. Let's go ahead and Yahenni. And again, we will be attacking their face. They don't have the ability to kill this. Fatal Push would need Revolt, as it is a 3-drop. And we are going to play Scrapheap Scrounger. So we have something to sack and give this indestructible, and a recursive threat now. Alright, Kalitas. However, if they have removal, then we have Revolt to kill Kalitas. Smuggler's Copter is interesting. What's also interesting is, do we sack this Scrounger to give this indestructible? That would give them a zombie. However, if they block, they're going to be gaining 3 life. And this has to sacrifice another creature, yes. So we can't sack it to itself. So their best course of action is to block Yahenni. What may be better off for us here is just playing the Smuggler's Copter. And then waiting till next turn. They have a Fatal Push. So we definitely want to do this. And Fatal Push Kalitas. Get our Yahenni a bit bigger. And now we can afford to attack with it. And their face. They have to kill Yahenni or block. And Yahenni's indestructible, so block it will be. And I screwed up completely. I had Fatal Push. I could have won there. I should have pushed the zombie and dealt lethal. Yup. That was a mistake. A big mistake. Unlicensed on Yahenni would be very bad. We don't have a Scrounger as it got exiled. Yeah, hopefully this is not going to cause us to totally lose this game, as we should have won on the last turn. Ob Nixilis is nice. Could get counterspelled. And indeed it does. And perhaps it was better to make a cleric and crew here to swing. Alright, Thing in the Ice. And they have left the game. We will continue playing. This has been kind of a comedy of errors on my part this game. Sorry about that. Let's go ahead and Fatal Push this. Just get it off the board and we will kill them now. I promise. I won't mess up. Watch. Cleric. Yay! I did it right. Crew. And attack. Their face. And that will be it for this game and this episode of Friday Night Magic, friends. Thank you so much for watching. I do hope you've enjoyed the video. If you have, please leave a like below. It really does help tremendously. And consider subscribing to the channel if you'd like to see more videos in the future. I have been Teveron, and until next time, friends, be excellent to each other.